Hey guys, what is up? Carter here. Gonna make a controversial video for you. Well, not really controversial, but it's definitely gonna get some comments and probably a few thumbs downs. I don't know. I am going to attempt to try to explain slash defend Emerson's so-called lack of fit and finish. Yeah, I know it's not going to be an easy feat, and I know I'm going to get a lot of resistance and whatnot. But man, those two look nice together, huh? But yeah, I'm going to try to do it. And also kind of explain the philosophy behind the fit and finish thing. Some of you have probably heard Emerson's explanation of it, basically that it's just not a priority for him. You know, he didn't set out to make pretty knives or knives with high finish. He set out to make user knives, knives that will serve you well and you can use hard and last a lifetime with a warranty to back it. Of course, the biggest complaint to that is, okay, that's fine. That's all well and good, but where does that money go then if it's not paying for finish? And, I could explain that it goes to their amazing warranty and service and all the other benefits you get when you get an Emerson knife. I've already talked about how amazing their warranty and customer service department is. But also another point is there is actually a benefit to not prettying up something that's supposed to be used hard. I know it sounds crazy, right? You'd say, well, why don't you just pretty it up and shine it up, and you could use it hard anyways. It doesn't affect the functionality. No, but what it does affect is it does affect the manufacturer's ability to fix it and send it back to you. And what I mean by that is Strider knives. Most would consider it a step up in terms of fit and finish. I mean, they're still not geared towards that per se, but most people would. I mean, there's a lot of work in this knife. All the edges are smooth. There's no machining marks. Every line is straight. They've got this beautiful flame pattern put on here. I still don't know how they do that. Beveling on the inside of this lock bar, jimping all along here. Everything's nice and smooth and finished. The coating on here, they have to black oxidize it and then bead blast these stripes into it. So, there's a lot of work put into here. And when this lock bar wears out, once this actually moves all the way over and you have lock rock, which by the way it would take for frickin' ever, once that happens, what they do to fix that is they take this side, which is the stop pin that actually contacts the titanium and stops the blade. They take that and they add a cap to it. So it adds just, like a millimeter extra of steel around that. And what that does is it sets the blade forward ever so slightly. And as you can see, that resets the lock bar earlier. So that's how they fix that. And, I've heard some people complain about it. They're upset that that's how they fix it. But the only other conceivable way to fix it would be to replace this whole TI slab here. And that's a very large portion of this knife. It's a large portion of the cost. I mean, it really is. Aside from the blade, which is, I would say that this titanium is kind of more valuable than probably the blade. Titanium's expensive and it's hard to work with. It's rough on tools to work. And you can see here, I mean, there's a lot of different cuts here. I mean, obviously the blade has been ground into its shape. That's all done before heat treat and it's been finished, so it's a close call, but pretty dang close. You've got a lot of different holes of exact measures that need to be tapped. Pretty thick piece of titanium, and then of course it's flamed here. So ultimately, let's say this is a $500 knife. If you were to kind of, divide the value of this knife, I would say $200 for the blade, maybe even $150 for the blade, $250 for the titanium, and then $100 for the G10, which is not too expensive and really easy to machine. I don't even know if that adds up to $500. But anyways, you know what I'm saying. It's a huge chunk of this knife, expenditure of this knife. So replacing this when this lock bar just moves over isn't very cost effective. That's a lot of work, very expensive just to get this knife working again, when a simple cap would fix it. The benefit of a knife like this is if you have the same scenario where this lock bar moves all the way over, gets worn out, you send it into Emerson, they put a new liner in for you. You know, I believe that in some instances they may put a larger stop pin in there, but I think generally from everything I've seen, they'll just put a new liner in there for you. And they can do that because it's, one, relatively thin titanium, and two, it doesn't have all of the work on here. It's basically just cut out rather, I don't want to say crudely, but just, you know, rough cut out, thrown in a stone washer real quick, detent set, and then it's good to go. You know, it's not equivalent to something like this. I mean, just milling out this relief right here, I mean, that's a lot of, you know, that's some machine time right there. So definitely it's more practical for Emerson to just replace that piece. And the same thing could really be said for the entire knife. You know, I mean, the more polish you put on something, the more man hours and the more machining time you put in there, the more expensive it's going to be to replace. And so then you run into instances where manufacturers don't want to do things like that, and then they start restricting their warranty, and they say, well, it's only good for so long, or it's a limited warranty. You know, if it's not a defect in the knife, we won't fix it. You know, if it's something that wore out, that's just part of having the knife, buy a new one. You know, it makes them more likely to say things like that because they can't afford or don't want to afford to replace those parts. You know, I mean, I can't imagine sending in a Microtech frame lock, you know, with the inset fully machined frame lock with the steel insert on the lock face. I mean, I've never dealt with their customer service, but I'm imagining, I don't know what they would do for you. I really don't know if they would replace that or give you a new knife or just say, you know, sorry. I mean, and this is assuming we're talking 5 years later. You know, obviously, if you get it and there's something wrong with it, that's a different story. I mean, you've had it for 5 years, you've used it hard, you can tell it's been used, and it finally just wore that lock bar out. All of these instances, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about out-of-the-box issues. That's something totally different. I'm talking you've used this thing for years and it's naturally worn out. You know, this is a mechanical thing. It wears out. It doesn't matter. I mean, we're always trying to slow that down by carbidizing and steel inserts and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's a moving piece of machinery. Well, not really machinery, but it's a moving tool with multiple parts. And, you know, with a lock face like that, it works by jamming two pieces of steel together, and eventually it's going to wear out. It's just how it happens. Just a matter of how quickly. So yeah, anyways, back to my point. And basically with this knife, that's the intention, is that this thing is to be used, and used hard. So the idea is you buy this knife, you just use the crap out of it. Ernie will replace that liner 2, 3, 4, 5, however many times to get your knife back to you, get it in working order. You know, if you need a scale replaced, whatever the case may be, they're there to get this knife working again. And so coming from that perspective, just the more spit and polish, which doesn't add to the functionality of the knife, just makes it more expensive and more complicated for them to take care of their product, if that makes sense. You know, and I think Ernie really does come to this from kind of a tool perspective, like a hammer. You know, you buy a hammer, you buy the hammer because of the brand, the quality of the parts and materials, the warranty, things like that, but you don't really take it home and inspect it and say, oh, this handle doesn't quite match up to the steel in this little part, you know, or there's a little nick underneath. You don't care. I don't care. When I go buy a hammer, I don't inspect them and pick the one that looks the best. I just buy the damn hammer because I need a hammer. And so, you know, obviously the knife world's different, but that's the perspective that Mr. Emerson comes at it from. And I think you don't fully appreciate Emerson's or really understand that until you do take advantage of their warranty and their customer service and do get work done on your knife. And then you really kind of can understand where he's coming from and where some of that extra money is actually going. All right, guys, take it easy.